Hello everybody and welcome to another fly tying video with your host Scott. In this video I'm going to demonstrate how to tie a black and red holographic UV buzzer. The main reason I tie this particular pattern the way I do is in a lot of pictures I've noticed that the black buzzer seems to have a red or very dark orange rib. I believe this is due to the haemoglobin content. Either way, without reading up on it, that's what we're going to go for with this buzzer. I've tied a few already and I've got to say they do look very good, and I've also caught quite a few carp with them. So we're going to give this one a go. I normally have a set of size 10, size 12 and size 14. I've done the 10 and I've done the 14. So it's now time to do one on the size 12. So in the vise we've got a size 12 B110. The reason we're using the heavier gauge is because this is for my carp fishing box, excuse me. We're going to be using a black uni thread in 8/0. We're going to be using a red holographic tinsel. This case it's a Madeira Spectra, colour code 515, excuse me. Then obviously the star of the show, we've got our low viscosity UV resin. This one's a vineyard one. And then for the thorax cover, I literally paint my thorax covers using another UV varnish normally. This one's by Miley. This is available in quite a few different places. I get mine from work. I'm not allowed to divulge where I work, unfortunately. But you can also get them on Amazon. There's a massive range of colours on Amazon, in fact, including fluorescent orange, which is being ordered very soon. So we go in at the eye and start there, and we're going to follow our usual buzzer formula, which I'm sure you've seen before. One thing you guys may not have seen before, if you haven't watched the video, is my new vise, which I'm absolutely loving. This is a Snowbee Flymate standard pedestal vise, and it's recently replaced the vise that's been used to do most of my other videos up to today. And yeah, I'm very happy with it. The review is actually in the list before this video. So we're going to try and find the end of the tinsel, which is proving difficult. Oh, there we go, that's got it. That's because this particular version of the tinsel seems to curl up like this. And to get rid of that, I normally just give it a quick... There we are. I think it went on the spool fairly slack when they did it at the factory. Tie that in there. And now this new vise has got a material clip which will hold the tinsel out of the way. You may have seen me struggle in previous videos with that, so the struggling is now over. So we're going to go round the bend. Even though this hook is one continuous bend, there is another bend where the hook point starts to be formed, and I like to go to the middle of that bend. Which is about there. And then we're going to come back up with close turns. Now you guys have got all the time in the world to do these close turns. I'm trying to do a video, so I might miss a few. It's okay, the fly will turn out just fine, I'm sure. So you do one full cycle, and then we're going to do 3/4 of a cycle for the next pass. You can obviously use floss to do this if you wanted to. You could even get really clever and just colour the hook in with a marker pen and then wrap the tinsel around that. If you wanted a really skinny buzzer, that would be a really good way of doing it. So that's my 3/4 pass. So now we're going to do our halfway pass. This is just to create a taper in the body. It's a very subtle taper. And we're going to want to finish about possibly there. And then we're going to go back up to the point where the thread hangs halfway between the eye and the hook point, which is about there. And that's how I'll gauge my thorax size. We're going to get our tinsel and start ribbing the fly. Now, if you haven't watched my other videos, I normally put my finger there just to hold it in place and then carry on with the next turn while I'm going around the bend. But once I get to the other part of the hook, which is parallel with the ground, let's say, at least the desk, I'm sure, you can just get away with ribbing it normally like you would any other fly. Now we're going to tie that in there. You only need a couple of turns just to hold it, and then pull it back into your material clip if you've got one, or just hold it back if you haven't, and then just put a couple of turns over it just to put it back in the plane that you want it to be in, because we're going to keep this bit of tinsel now. There is another way you can do this fly which is a little bit easier in fact. I like to do it this way. Now you don't want the thorax to be too big, because you've got to wind your tinsel over it and it'll just slip if it's too big. So you want it fairly small on this fly. Now there is a way you can do it where you don't wrap the tinsel around. You can just bring it around so that it sits as a cheek, sort of like that. That's one way of doing it, but I like to do it like this, which isn't necessarily true to the natural. I want to do close turns, if not touching turns. Touching turns are better. You want to try and get that sparkle coming through the resin. And then tie it off. Trim away your tinsel. If it's a long piece, keep it for your next one. Now I'm just going to put a quick half hitch in there, and I want to try something different. Whenever I try and use this tool on camera, it goes wrong. So I'm going to put a half hitch in there for insurance. Yes. This will be the first one in 26 videos. And that seems to have worked. So it looks like I can whip finish now. Learning together. And trim away. So then we're going to apply our UV. You've probably seen me do this before, but I like to build up the thorax first. Thorax and the head. And I'll rely on the UV for the bulge, to be fair, rather than the thread. You want to go all the way to the eye with the resin because you need to seal it in. Don't get it in the eye. And then we're going to use gravity as our friend. So there's quite a lot of resin at the bottom there, so if we flip it upside down and let it run, and then hit it when it's just right. There we are, perfect thorax, and that's how we use gravity. You can obviously use a higher viscosity resin if you choose. That should do it. Now we're going to do the body. Now, to do the body, you want to go in right at where the thread and the tinsel end and the hook starts. You want to try and seal the whole fly in, because you don't want any water getting under that resin. It'll discolour. Worst of all, it'll chip off. And if you're using a white thread, so you've tied a white okie dokie, for example, the hook will rust underneath it and the whole fly will go brown, which is an absolute disaster when you've put all this TLC into tying a fly. So this is a fairly boring part of the video, and I understand that from my viewership. So I'll talk about something a bit different rather than UV resin. I went fishing today. Today's the 26th of December. Boxing Day, by the way. Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to my viewers. And I went on my local pools, which are walking distance from my my lodge here, and the weather's not been particularly nice. It's about 6 degrees, mist, very little wind, which is one of the reasons why I went. I particularly like to fish the way I fish when there's very little wind, because the bait I use doesn't move around. Now I should probably explain a bit further if I'm talking about bait. I actually fly fish for carp quite regularly, and I was using my dog kibble pattern. This is a pattern that's constantly evolving. This one's got a little bit more orange paint on it, and I haven't bothered painting the actual body of it. And I did quite well. I had 8 carp in a couple of hours off the surface in December, which is pretty good going. The biggest was about £4, which is, with fly fishing gear, is plenty of fun. So yeah, did really well. I started fishing at 10 and finished at 1. Really enjoyed it. I use an 8-weight rod to do it, with a 10-foot. It's between, probably, well, the line was sold to me as £6, but the diameter is quite thick. It's 0.26, so it's probably a bit heavier than that. It's probably more like 6 kilos, and they've misprinted it, so I'm going to say it's about 12 or 13 pound line. In fact, that probably explains it, to be fair. So it took me a while to work that one out. I've worked it out on camera. So yeah, it's a typo on the spool, I think. But that's about the sort of, and it's just a straight leader, no fluorocarbon, and I grease it up as well. And the idea, I mean, it took them a good half an hour to start feeding. I use Harrington's turkey with veg, which is available pretty much everywhere. It's a pretty good bait for carp, I've found. And I mean, I even buy mine in a petrol station. It's literally everywhere, this dog food. So you know, you can find it. You can also find something very similar in Aldi. Aldi's version is pretty good. It's turkey, but it's cereal free. I think that's how it's sold. So yeah, you know what to look for now. But anyway, it took them a good half an hour, 3/4 an hour to even start feeding, so it's a good job I'm a smoker, because I just stood there smoking cigarettes until the action started. And then the idea is then you cast your fly in amongst a group of feeding fish and hope for the best. There's not really much skill to it. The only skill that you've got to worry about is whether they've actually got the bait in the mouth or not. And that's what the orange spot's for. And once that orange spot disappears, you know it's in the mouth, and you try and set the hook. Happy days. Nice little fishing story for you. In the summer I fish these particular flies for carp. You carry on using the same bait if you want. You can feed maggots, that'll probably work as well. And then cast these. I normally have a team of 3. One very shallow if you're using the dog biscuits. And the idea is you get the fish into a frenzy and they start snapping at anything pretty much. And yeah, the take on the buzzers is a little bit different to one on the dog biscuit. They seem to take them much more confidently. And yeah, you can have some pretty good sport on the buzzers for carp as well. You sort of have to use an indicator there, which I know some people shun the use of indicators, but I use them quite a lot myself. I used to fish without them almost exclusively. Then I started making my own indicators, which I don't know whether I've got one here to show you. I'll have to do a video on that one. It's basically a braided loop with a cylinder of foam threaded onto it, and then another braided loop at the other end. And you just do like a loop-to-loop connection to connect it to your fly line. The only disadvantage with that type of indicator is you can't adjust the depth. So if I need to fish shallower than my leader, I normally use a different indicator. And I've recently acquired from America. I forgot what they're called now. I'll have to look that one up. I'll put it in the video description or in the captions here. And they're pretty good. They lock onto the line. They're similar to the airflow airlock ones, but they're in line rather than sat on top of your leader. And I had to import them from America, and it cost a fortune. 30 quid for 5 of them. Or in plain English, £30. So that fly's pretty much finished now. Just to finish it off properly, we're going to use some normal nail varnish, and we're just going to do a very light coat all over it. And this just locks the resin in, because if you touch the resin, don't matter how much you leave it to set, it will go cloudy if you touch it. And that should do it. Let's give it a twirl. You see how that tinsel just stands out with the application of the resin. It looks very realistic. The other thing that you can do is add a tuft of white marabou just there, and that'll make it look even better. There we are. That's the black and red holographic UV buzzer. Thank you very much for watching. Please like, share and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next tying. Bye bye for now.